he gets to my apartment. He texts me. He's like, "Yo, come outside." I'm like, "Oh my god, he's gonna try and fight me or something." Like, I think I'm like, I don't know what I did, but like, I think I like really upset Brian.
What is up, my friends? Thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. No one does it like us over here at the Scoped Exposure podcast, and I feel like we're making historic moves today. Anyone who's been following the show for a long time knows that we've had the great opportunity to have multiple members of Knocked on the show, and sometimes I've been thinking about eventually asking Nicko if he would bless us with his presence as far as coming on the show. And to me, this is like the fifth piece of Exodia coming in. And name another podcast that has every member of the band in separate one-on-one conversations on their platform versus just a full band, interview with five dudes in one space. But it is my absolute pleasure to be welcoming Nicko of Knocked, Loose, and Church Tongue on the Scoped Exposure podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Yo, what's up? What's up?
I am super stoked, dude. And we were chatting just before we were getting into this. Like, this is your first interview / podcast ever?
Ever, yeah. Well,
ever.
Technically, yes. Yeah.
Technically,
I'm
there's
so
some
excited. Yeah.
When I tweeted at you for this, because I like connecting the dots as far as the lore behind how we even got here. Just before we get into it, like, were there certain things where you were, I wouldn't say that you were expecting the ask, but was there any anticipation on your end to be sitting here?
Honestly, I never expect anything. I kind of just was like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I noticed that everybody was on the podcast already. And I know you had talked multiple times on the other guy's podcast that you wanted to get everybody. And I think on Kevin's, you mentioned that you wanted to get me too. So I kind of like knew that it was going to come eventually, but I just didn't know when.
Yeah. Well, I'm very happy as well. Like, I think this is a great example to other interviewers or people that want to get into that, as far as like there's the obvious like main interview person of a band who might do like the press and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I think every single Knock Loose interview has been so unique and has brought like all these different perspectives. And I know that this one is going to be a great example of that as well. So before we get into the music checks, Nicko, we got to check some bevs already. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So it's tradition for the guests to go first as far as bevs go. And it sounds like you have two.
I do. So my first one I'm going to get started with is a golden oolong boba tea from Tiger Sugar. It's a spot that just opened up here. I think it's a chain, but it just opened up here and it's awesome.
Cool.
So I'll go ahead and actually, you know what? I'll wait for you to show your bev.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna sandwich. You're the pieces of bread as far as this bev sandwich.
Yeah. And we can crack them open together.
I'm very much looking forward to that. So I have had one of these before, but not the energy drink line, and I still don't know how I feel about supporting this bev company. More so because it's just like a YouTuber that I don't even watch, but like, I do respect the bev game. So I'm drinking a Tropical Punch energy drink by Prime. I don't know if you are YouTube head or watch any of the stuff that goes on in that land.
To be honest, I'm pretty disconnected, but I'm familiar with what Prime is. I
Okay.
Is that Logan Paul's drink?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
it. It's
cool.
him and KSI is like his
Okay,
business partner.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, it's like I feel like because it's a 50-50 split, it's mainly Logan's, but like KSI is like the British side of the company as well, and I watch his
Mhm.
stuff, so it is what it is. I had like their like ice pop, just hydration drink, and I
Mhm.
thought I would give the energy drink a shot. So that's my one and only Bev. What's your second?
My second is just a normal ass coconut water from Kroger.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
got to stay hydrated,
Not
you
a
know.
lot of people, not a lot of people check the coconut water or the boba tea. So I think you're, putting
So
some points on the board.
it's funny because like this is like the one thing I was like super fixated about. I was like, what am I gonna do for my beverage? And I was thinking about it for days, and I was like, it'd be so fucking funny if I got every single bev that everybody on the podcast has gotten before me, and I just had like
Oh, from the
this,
knock loose can.
yeah, no, just in
Yeah.
general. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, so I just had like a room full of
every
beverages.
breath.
Yeah, but yeah. So I decided on boba tea because I was craving it this morning, and I was like, you know what, that'd be
Mhm.
a cool beverage. I don't know if anybody's done it yet, so
I could probably count on one hand how many people have checked the boba tea, but
okay.
the idea that someone is a big enough fan of the show where they have a working, sheet of every single bev that's been checked, both on my side and the guest side, like if you have the time and willingness to do that, I would love to see it. I'd be curious of the metrics as far as how much water, how much coffee, how much
Yeah,
energy drinks.
yeah. I also thought about like maybe doing like a pour over on camera, just to do it, but yeah, I don't know.
A lot of ideas, but
Yeah,
I'm happy that you've brought such good beverages to the show.
thank you.
Nico, cheers to you, man.
Let's
Really
do it.
stoked to finally do this.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Oh, okay.
Is it awesome?
Hmm. Yeah, it's like the tropical punch flavor, I think, was the right move. I feel like
Okay,
tropical punch
let's
is
go.
like never super good or like never super bad. It's kind of like middle of the road, but that's like
Yeah, yeah.
a solid intro. So, how's the boba?
It's great. I
Is
think I let it sit for too long because all the boba's kind of like just formed one giant block. So the first sip was very hard for me to get through, but
I see.
it's great. It's always great.
I had a little. I don't want to say this is trauma per se, but in the first time I was introduced to boba was not, hey, here's this drink, you should check it out. It was, hey, check this out, and this guy would suck up the boba bubbles and shoot
Mhm.
them at like just random people who were walking down the sidewalk. I'm like,
That's awesome.
whoa, this drink is violent, but yeah, I've come around to it. I'm a boba fan for sure. It's not my go-to, but
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
it do you have a like a go-to like flavoring of the boba? Because I feel like there's so many different ways that you can do that. I don't know if you're at liberty to speak on or
Uh,
educate on the boba side of things.
yeah, so I'm a pretty like straightforward person. I like just like the either a black tea, like plain black tea, no milk or anything, with boba and lychee jelly. I didn't get any lychee
Okay.
jelly today just because I just wanted to be, you know, just straightforward. But yeah, I would
Hmm.
say that's my typical order. But every now and then I'll go crazy. I also think you can judge a boba tea spot on whether or not they're like just plain black tea is good. And this place has really good
Oh,
plain black
okay.
tea. Yeah,
So kind of like how you would judge a coffee shop based off
exactly.
like an
Yeah.
Americano. Like,
Hmm.
what's your espresso taste like?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a
Cool.
big
Well,
coffee head, so like I feel like it was expected that I would bring coffee, so I was like, nah, no
Yeah,
coffee today.
got to keep them on their toes.
Yeah,
Well, Nicko, there's a lot of music stuff that I really want to dive into with you, but since this is your first time on the show, as well as with any of the other episodes of the Knock guys, any new guest who's brand new to the show, I always like to get a little bit of their hardcore origin story, a little context about how they even got put
sure.
on the path of being where they are now. So tell me what that was like for you the first time you were hearing breakdowns, screaming, guitar music, however you want to spin it.
Sure. So I honestly got into music pretty young. My dad plays guitar, and that's how I learned. But he had like a shitty band that would play in our basements at like family get-togethers and stuff sometimes. Um, so I was always kind of around guitar music, but he didn't, as far as I know, he didn't listen to metal at all. Uh, like I think the heaviest thing he listened to was like Guns N' Roses. So that was like kind of like my first mark on the map as far as like rock music goes. Um,
Right.
but I'm the youngest of three brothers, so uh, my older brothers aren't into heavy music either. But I know growing up, like Linkin Park, System of a Down, Sum 41, um, like all of those
Rip.
bands were like, oh yeah, R.I.P. I saw that and I was
Yeah.
like, damn, this is actually like one of the first punk bands I'd ever listened to, ever.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I was just like, damn, that kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
I guess like the first like tech like screamy band is probably either Linkin Park or uh System of a Down I'd ever
Okay.
listened to. And then like most people like getting into like Tony Hawk Underground and Need for Speed Underground, like both of those games had like such like integral soundtracks for me growing up because I only had a GameCube and I had both of those games for GameCube. And
Hmm.
uh, I remember hearing, I think it was like Hand of Blood or something on Need for Speed Underground uh, by Bullet for My Valentine, and I was just like, oh, this is fucking awesome. And I
Hmm.
think that's kind of what led me down the road of like metal. It's kind of like blurry to me because I'm not entirely sure what the first like scream like heavy like metal band I listened to, but um
Yeah.
yeah. And then in like sixth grade, this skater kid from Chicago, his name was Mike Sheldon. So shout out if you're watching this.
Okay.
But
Shout out to
he
Mike.
shout out to Mike. He moved to my suburb outside of Indianapolis, Indiana, and he was like the only punk kid I'd ever seen my entire life. Like I remember, so he came in with a mohawk, right? And
Mm.
to my memory, his mohawk was like a foot tall, right? But it was probably like
Right. It
yeah,
could
it
have
was
been
like
like this
yeah,
high,
yeah,
but
yeah, but it was like so fucking high. And he was wearing like Misfit shirts all the time and Casualties and Sex Pistols stuff. And we
Mm.
became friends because I used to skate a little bit, and he was like one of the only other skaters at my school. And we became friends, and he kind of put me on to punk music. So um, yeah, I got heavily into the Misfits and like AFI and Anti Flag and stuff like that. Um,
Through
so
him.
yeah, through him.
Yeah.
Um,
Was the stuff off of like the Tony Hawks and all of like the soundtrack, core, so to speak, was all of that just like not intentionally sought out, but it was just like you were just discovering it while you were,
yeah,
being a
like it
teenager and
it
playing
was
video
kind of like
games?
one of those things where it was like always in the background and like all of the stuff that I did. And once I became like more aware of like what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be, like I started paying attention a little bit more.
Mm. Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So potentially without that like subtle interest first, like the punk music might have not, you might have not been primed pun unintended, to, receive the punk music and then, kind of go down the rabbit hole. Because some
Yeah.
people can
Mhm.
get introduced to something too early and they have a stark, like, negative reaction where they're like, oh, like, what is this wacky, like, why are they screaming? But you already
Right.
understood screaming, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because so, like, when we met, I had, like I wanna say I had already been into a few local bands. They were, like, touring local bands back then, but, I don't know if they were, like, big, big. So in my hometown, like, the big bands were, like, Gwen Stacy, Haste the Day, and, The Contortionist.
Mm.
So, like, I was a little bit familiar with Gwen Stacy, I think, around this time period. Um, and I think some like Christian metalcore stuff uh, I had already been into. Um, so like once I once me and him became friends, it was kind of like one of those things where it was like, yo, I got so much cool music to show you. And I was like, okay, cool. And his
Mm.
dad was like a vinyl collector and like loved music and stuff too. So like I was over at his house all the time, and we actually, I think my very like first band was with Mike, and he
Oh, okay.
really, yeah, he really pushed me to like uh get going on like learning an instrument. So
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, very integral person to your journey, really.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in probably over 10 years, but if he's out there, just know I'm thankful for you.
Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, like, I think, it is funny when you're when you have good experiences with people in just like when there's nothing really at stake, you're not playing on a band on a label, you're just like literally dicking around in your friend's basement or whatever, or garage or
Mhm.
whatever it is. But sometimes like you're making me think about all the people that kind of pushed me or helped me kind of like take guitar playing seriously, or anything like that, whether it was intentional or not. But like they don't play in bands anymore, they've like had kids or changed up, and that's totally cool. But
Yeah.
like i I think I've talked to Jordan, producer of the show, about like I feel like there should almost be a challenge with, because I feel like everyone in hardcore probably has one or two people. Like there should be a day where you either DM or text or call the person that like helped actually like get you on that path, and kind of be like, hey, just so you know, without you showing me this weird music when we were 15 years old, I wouldn't be like playing in arguably one of the biggest hardcore bands of all time. Like it's
Yeah.
just like
Straight
stuff
up.
like that, I
Yeah.
think is like really cool to kind of like bring it back to those people. Because for them, they could just be like eating dinner and just living whatever. And then they're like,
Right.
oh, something I did that was positive had a lasting impact. And
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
think about like shit like that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the weird thing about my arc, like my music interests, it kind of like went like in weird directions. So like after me and him became friends, like obviously I went through like this punk phase, and then I got really into like the church crowd and met some friends through like youth group and stuff. And like I said, like I was already familiar with like Haystaday and Gwen Stacy, and both of
Mm.
which are like Christian metalcore bands. So
Yeah.
like whenever I became friends with um like all of my like youth group people, I started like diving deeper into like Christian metalcore and Christian metal and stuff like that. And that kind of that like really put me onto the path to where I was today. But I also got like really into some terrible scene bands. Uh, like I had a very, very rough scene phase. So it was not embarrassing because
A
yeah,
large majority of people listening to this
yeah,
probably did as well. So
yeah. I won't say
Yeah.
it's embarrassing because it's not. It definitely was integral to like who I am today, and I still think a
Hmm.
lot of those bands actually do hold up and wrote some really really important pieces of art. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Like sometimes I meet people and they keep like their hardcore world or whatever they do in like the public sphere. Like when they're talking to like a normie, they like kind of like do their best to hide that. And sometimes like I like to play into it and to see like how far away are we on musical spectrums? Because like yeah, there might be
yeah,
certain popular artists that we both like, but like on the heavy music side, how distant are we? And
right.
I'm working at a coffee shop right now, and was getting trained with this girl, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like I listen to like MCR and all this." I'm like, "Oh okay," like, and then I was just like, "Okay, how is that the furthest, or is there something closer?" And then she's like, "Yeah, I put on some Pierce the Veil." I'm like, "Okay," I'm like, "I remember when I loved that band, but like respect, but like not my vibe much anymore." But
Sure, sure.
you know, but I do think that you're right that like whether it was like popular at the time, like you mentioning Haste the Day, like When Everything Falls was like one of the first songs on guitar I was trying to
Dude,
learn. Like
dude,
the
those
off
riffs
time
are awesome.
breakdown.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
dude,
yeah. So sick,
so
so
good.
sick.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that there is definitely I credit it very similar, like went to youth group. I did the Under Oath, the Demon Hunter, the fucking
Oh sick.
um trying to think of a lot of that world. But yeah, I did a lot of that and then definitely had a lot of scene bands that came and gone. And I think that there are still bands that create it in a self-aware way that they're
Mhm.
like, in that niche, but some of that stuff is like it's time to grow up a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
Hmm. So, so when did like playing, because sometimes it's like when people talk about their first bands, like local shows like either come right away or they don't. We're just kind of like doing a few things just like with each other. When did like
Mhm.
the first like real deal, like okay, we're playing a local show and there's people who are coming to see us come into the picture? Is that like
Um,
very early church tongue days, or is there stuff like, is there multiple projects even before that?
so here is some church tongue lore.
Okay.
Um, my very first like real band that like did local shows and stuff was a I wouldn't say an established band, but they were definitely a band and had already been playing shows in the local scene. They were called They Say Redeemer, uh, and I joined that band. They were kind of like a Christian like deathcore band. I joined that band, and which is really funny because they were like, "Oh, I don't know if we want Nicko to play. He's kind of too seen." But anyway, I know. I like showed up to like try out like playing. I think I was like wearing like a youth large, uh, like super
Oh, I can
tight,
already picture it.
like bright blue Devil Wears Prada shirt. I think
Hmm.
it was either like a Prada shirt or like a Chiodo shirt or something. But regardless,
Oh, I
yeah,
I might have had the same bright blue Cheeto shirt specifically. I'm seeing it, and
yeah. Like I can't like describe like what design it was, but I can see it so clearly. You know what I mean?
I think it had like, I don't even know what it was, but there's like it's yellow and pink, and there's some kind of monster. Is that the same
Yeah,
one?
I
Maybe
think
I'm
so. Yeah,
man.
I can't remember
Yeah.
exactly, but yeah, it was. I just remember it being bright blue. But yeah, I joined
Shout out to
that band.
anyone listening who had that shirt
Yeah,
as well.
straight up. Uh, so I joined They Say Redeemer, and that's where I met Mike Sugars because he
Mm.
ended up being the vocalist of that band um, as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. So
So
here's where the roads start to meet.
yeah. So
Mhm.
there's me, Mike Sugars, and then this guy named Justin was playing drums, and he's the one that really, really got me into hardcore. So when I joined They Say Redeemer, they were in the transition of becoming like from going from a deathcore Christian band to like a kind of like hardcore Christian band. So
Mm.
um, their old guitarist wrote some like hardcore songs, and they were like testing it out and X, Y, and Z. And when I joined, it was kind of like I was still kind of like a metalcore kid. Like I wanted to be like a melodic hardcore esque kind of thing. Um, so yeah, me, Mike Sugars, and Justin, I would say were like the main core. There were a few other members. Shout out Sam Kirby. Uh, uh, that were pretty integral in the band's career. But yeah, we did They Say Redeemer for a long time, and then eventually our sound just grew so far away from the original They Say Redeemer that we were like, what are we doing? Let's just like start a new band, start over. And that's how Conquerors was born. And Conquerors
Oh, okay.
was my pretty much like my child, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So um very like melodic metalcore, like uh the Ghost Inside, Misery Signals esque kind of deal.
Mhm.
And then another thing happened as like when we got older, we were just like Mike and I were like the only original members of the band at this point, and we were like, you know what? Let's rebrand again. So we played a super infamous show. I don't know how much research or if Mike talked about. I can't remember if Mike talked about this or not, but I don't know how much research you've done. But very first show as Church Tongue was a house show in Terre Haute with Beartooth, and we set our guitar player on fire, and it ended up going viral. There was a video of it. I think like somebody from Vanna or like somebody from My Ticket Home or somebody took a video of it, and
Right.
it like literally overnight it like blew up and got viral.
Okay,
Um,
wait. You're playing this house show. Is
yeah,
the arson of your own homie planned out or spontaneous?
so it was planned out. So that was
Okay.
actually it was supposed to be his last show in the band.
So let's just
And
burn him alive.
well, it was so we had tested it out and done something like that before at an
Oh,
outdoor
okay.
fest. Yeah, and
Mm.
it wasn't crazy at all. It was like little tiny baby flames, and it went out immediately. And we're like, oh yeah, we can do this.
Yeah. And
And as like
sorry to cut you off. I think at this point there's lots of videos of like Clown from Slipknot getting lit on fire on
yeah,
stage.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's like, oh, okay. So that's not like too out of the normal, but
yeah.
okay.
It
Okay.
it wasn't one of
I'm
those
very
things.
invested.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those things where we're like, oh yeah, this is our gimmick. We're gonna like fucking do this to be cool. We were literally just like fucking around, shooting the shit. Am I allowed to cuss on this? Yeah, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Uh,
Of course.
we were just like messing around, and we were like, oh, it'd be so funny if we set Chris on fire again for his last show.
Hmm.
So we did it, and the fire ended up being really, really fucking big, like huge flames. I remember like I was facing my cab, and it was like slow motion. I was like, it was the very last song. I think it was like off of, I think we were playing Acid Jesus, which is off of like Church Tongue's first LP.
Hmm.
And like we had like this breakdown at the end or something, and we were playing it, and I was like headbanging facing my cab, and I remember like like looking over to the side, seeing the fire, and I like felt like everything was in slow motion, and I was just like counting. I was like, "What the fuck? Why isn't it out yet? why isn't it out yet?
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh my God, we're literally going to kill one of my best friends in the entire world right now. But luckily, since it was a house show, there was a shower very close by. So after it didn't go out, and our friends' sides, like on the side, not side stage, but they were on the side because it was like a house show.
They're in the
They
dining
were like,
room.
they're like trying to, yeah, right. They're like trying to pour water bottles on him. No, it's not going out. He throws his guitar off,
Oh,
runs to the shower, and like just turns it on, and then it goes out.
wow.
He didn't suffer any like third degree burns or anything like that. Just like lost some of his hair and had like some slight burns, but nothing crazy.
Right.
And
Maybe
like,
the fit got ruined or whatever.
yeah, like we knew that we were doing this, so he was wearing like a really thick flannel, and like, it was like,
Oh, okay. So this
yeah,
wasn't just like, um, I think there was a video recently where the singer of Kiss, like his hair just lit on fire, like off
oh
of
shit,
one of their
really?
pyrotechnics, and he just powering through playing the guitar, singing the vocals. Like security's like trying to get out for like 20 seconds. It's
Oh
like
my
a
God,
long time, and he was
yeah,
just unfazed. So
damn,
yeah, but it sounds like your friend knew it was happening, so he came
yeah, yeah,
prepared. Okay.
yeah. He
Yeah.
knew it was
That
gonna
was a
happen.
very important detail.
Yeah,
Like, I'm like, did he consent to this, or was it just like,
yeah.
gotcha,
He
thanks for
consented.
being in
He
the bed?
consented. It wasn't like oh, it's just a prank, babe. Like,
It's a prank, bro. Oh, that is so funny.
yeah,
But yeah, just
but
the
yeah,
count, like, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4 of counting the riff. It's like, oh, I have to start counting because I'm like actually concerned for your safety now.
yeah, straight up. So that was the first show as Church Tongue. So like,
Okay.
one, it was actually great because it was like kind of it kind of put our name not on the map, but it definitely like made people like be like, oh, there's this band from Indiana called Church Tongue. Cool, let's check them out. Um,
Right.
which
Super hot. New band.
yeah, yeah, right. Oh my God. So yeah, like, and we had like all of our collective dream obviously was to just like tour as much as possible. So we were doing that a lot. Like we had already like at this point of time in our career, we had already toured with like Left Behind and like Conveyor and a bunch of other like smaller regional bands that were like kind of on the come up. Like I had already been friends with Knocked Loose, like the Knocked Loose guys too at this point. Like we had already played shows together. Like we had already played shows with Grey Haven, and we'd been around. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah, we were. That was like the beginning of like the up of Church Tongue, I think, and we just toured a lot. We made some pretty bad touring decisions, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like it
Yeah.
obviously brought
Well,
me here, so yeah,
we've all made bad touring decisions. There's no
yeah,
one who has a clean record for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that's, we talked about the beginning of lighting your ex guitar player on fire. Fast forwarding to more recent day, air quotes. The latest thing that Church Tongue has put out was an EP called "The Hubris of God's Departed," which is self-released, right? It didn't come out
yes,
on anything.
yep,
So
self-released.
as as I want to commend you on that, because I think that there is this, I don't think it's this expectation for newer bands coming in that like their demo or their first thing has to be out on a label. But I keep, I'm thinking about when like Lumpy from Days was on the pod and he's like, just put your shit on Bandcamp, because like so many bands did that like back in the day. So it's cool to see that, bands are still doing that now, and not to like, if a label's hitting you up, yeah, like definitely chat about that. But I think there's just enough cool factors to just like self-release it.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, for sure.
you guys drop it. COVID is still in the picture, but is kind of on the way down.
Mhm.
And since then, it's been kind of crickets. So
Yeah.
like, and obviously there's like a transition point for you where, and we'll get into this in a bit as far as like joining up with Knock Loose and doing all of that. But is there anything else that like, were there future plans after that release, or was it just like, we just want to put this out and it is what it is?
So it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of like a big question mark for me as well. So what had happened was before the pandemic, we recorded this EP, and we were very, very stoked on these songs. It was like everything that I'd wanted Church Tongue to be, if not more. Like it was like this is our entire being put into this EP. Like we put every like I don't know. It was like my what's it called? Magnus opus. You know what I mean? And
Your Mona Lisa.
yeah. We were like, okay, we know what we have is sick. We don't care if anybody else thinks it's sick. Let's just release it. We were originally going to shop it around, but then the pandemic happened. And we were like, and I think at this point, I'm not sure if we had gotten final masters or anything yet. So we were like, well, shit, what are we going to do? And the longer the pandemic went on, we were like, let's just see what we can do ourselves and just put it out ourselves. And we were like, and honestly, I'm happy that it went that way. But before we put it out, I was hanging out with Brian and Isaac a lot during the pandemic. And I remember there was like one day in particular, like Brian had called me, and this is some Knock Loose lore. Brian had called me and was like, hey man, we need to talk. Can I come over? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh fuck, he sounded like super serious. I don't know what I did. And then he gets to my apartment. He texts me, he's like, yo, come outside. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna try and fight me or something. Like I think I'm like, I don't know what I did, but like I think I like really upset Brian.
Right.
And I come outside and he's like, hey man,
you're like, I might have to light Brian on fire as well.
Yeah, right. And I was just like, oh God, like what can this be? And he's like, get in my car, we're gonna go for a drive. And I was like, oh my God, he is actually gonna but no, he had just, I can't remember if it was like the roughs of A Tear in the Fabric of Life, or if it was like the like demos or something, but he wanted to show me the EP A Tear in the Fabric of Life before it was released. We drove around and we got back and he was like, so Cole doesn't want to tour anymore, decided to quit the band. And we've been talking and we've been like trying to think of people who would want to fill Cole's shoes, and we were wondering if you'd be interested. And at this point, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with Church Tongue. I'm not making any money. I was working at Urban Outfitters. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. I'd like just submitted an application to work for like corporate Urban Outfitters because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I don't know what Church Tongue's doing. I don't know, like, we're going to put this thing out by ourselves, but like, we don't have an audience anymore. So it's just like, whatever, like, I don't care. I just want to put it out there. And so I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I get like, we hang out and I get this offer, and I was like, I was trying to hold it in, like the excitement, like as much as I could. And I was just like, yeah, man, I'll let you know. I'll give you a call. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna murder me for 5 minutes ago, and now we're here. But
It's funny
yeah,
because Brian did not know that I thought he was gonna beat me up until way after I joined the band.
right.
So yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
just so you know, I thought you were gonna fucking beat me up, but uh, yeah. So I remember like walking in my apartment, and I was like, so I lived with Anthony Tran and Eric Easterday, and I was dating my partner. I think we had like just it was like a year or so into our relationship or so, and
Mhm.
she was over, and I was like, I like closed the door behind me. I was like, oh, I just got fucking joined the or I just got asked to join Knocked Loose. I like screamed it, and they're like, what?
Right.
But yeah, I was like so excited about that. But
Yeah.
that kind of like, and then I was like, well, Church Tongue is my baby. Like I immediately was just like, but wait, we have this EP that we were going to release.
Right.
What are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know what I want to do because on one hand, I want to take Church Tongue to the next level and like really push like being a band, but I don't know like if there's going to be room for uh newer bands after the pandemic if the pandemic ever ends. Like I didn't know like what
Right.
music
Yeah,
was
that
going
it
to
was
look like.
so unknown times.
Yeah,
You're
like
like,
I
are
was
we gonna play a show? Are people
yeah,
gonna come to shows?
yeah, like
People are buying records at home, but will they do that after? Like,
right.
there was so much
Yeah, like if
uncertainty for
Church
sure.
Tongue did a live stream, would anybody watch? Like, like I was like,
Right.
so um I called the guys in Church Tongue and I was like, hey, I just got this offer. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do you guys think? Should I take it? Should I leave it? Like, what do you guys want to do as a band? Because this isn't just like my thing, like obviously I had to take into consideration of like everybody else's like thoughts
Yeah.
about this band and or about Church Tongue.
Yeah.
And at that
Because
point in
I remember sorry
no,
to
you're
cut you
good.
off there. Because I remember there were interviews with Brian and Isaac. I think it was Brian specifically, and this is like at the very beginning of 2021, like January or something. And I remember it so vividly at the very end of the interview that him saying, the minute that shows are going to be okay, it's going to be okay for bands to be playing, the Knocked Loose machine will be fully
Yeah.
in gear mode, and it
Hmm.
totally was.
Hmm.
So like, I feel like, whether they're asking you or anyone else, it's like, knowing, oh, like the minute that we can't, it's seeming like we can play shows soonish maybe, but that's going to be my full-time thing, probably
Yeah.
creatively.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
so at this point, was Mike getting asked to be in Vatican? Did the knocked offer come first and then Vatican, or was it at the same time? Was it the
So
opposite?
it was so after I had this phone call with the Church Tongue guys,
Mhm.
Mike hits me up on the side and he was like, hey, can I call you? And I was like, oh great. Uh
Now
and
Mike wants to beat me up.
yeah, right. And then he calls me and he's like, so it's crazy that you just got this Knocked Loose offer. Like, congratulations. Like, I'm really excited for you. And he was like a week ago, I got the offer to join Vatican or try out for Vatican. And I was like, awesome. So sick. I was like, this is so sick. Like, I'm so stoked for you. Like, I knew,
Mhm.
like, we had been fans of Vatican for a while at that point. We had played a few shows together and like, we were like, damn, this band is fucking sick. Um,
Right.
and I was like, damn, Mike would be a really good fit because so obviously like Mike has range, where in Church Tongue he kind of just stuck to like a mid scream type sound. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was like, I knew Mike's potential, and I was like, damn, he will fucking kill it in a band like Vatican.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, we both got those offers pretty much at the same time, and we were both like, yeah, absolutely, go for it. Like,
Mhm.
let's just do it. And then church tongue can be not an afterthought, but like we can still do church tongue when the time is right. And so to answer anybody's questions about church tongue and if we're going to do more, the answer is yeah, we're going to record an EP or an LP at some point. Don't know when. A lot of my creative thoughts and creativity is mainly on Knock Loose right now. Um,
Mhm.
just because it is my livelihood, and I'm very, very passionate about Knock Loose and being in Knock Loose. So yeah, there will be something at some point.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
like it's cool to hear exactly from you that the latest release is exactly what you want Church Tongue to be, because I feel like it hits on so many like heavy music, like core pillars. Like those three
Mhm.
songs alone, like it flies by so quick, but it's at least to me it feels very repeatable. It's like, oh, we're back
Mhm.
at the first track, no worries, like let's just keep this cycle going.
Thank
But
you.
there's
That's
like
awesome to hear.
very melodic elements. There's like more just like sludgy, like um syncopated parts that I'm like, oh my gosh, like that the connection between the drums and the guitar for this breakdown was like sick. Um it's just a very great display of like what heavy, like I don't know if I want to put you guys in the metal, like it's metal core, but I feel like it
Yeah.
leans more like heavy metal core to me at
Yeah.
least.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like Church Tongue had always had like an identity crisis. We never really knew what we wanted to sound like, and then with Hell is Empty, we kind of like we hit the tip of the iceberg, and then with Hubris, it was like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing now. Like this
Right.
feels right. This is like all of our influences ever is like right in this. Yeah, like that's thank you. Seriously, that means a lot to hear because um I felt like Church Tongue was never shown in the correct light, or at least we never got to show our true like colors until that release. And
Hmm.
um yeah, I remember when it came out, every like the the reaction that we had was like unbelievable. I was like, damn,
Hmm.
this is sick, and I'm glad people like it.
Have you guys played a show since putting that record out?
No, we haven't.
Dude, the
Yeah.
anticipation whenever you guys do, if people aren't like losing their minds
Yeah,
to Nothing Lost, like man,
dude.
I can't even imagine.
Thank you, man. I'm very stoked. Like if and when that ever happens, like I can't wait to play those songs. I'm going to have to relearn them because it's been so long since I've played them. But
Dude, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm stoked.
Yes. Yeah. I would highly recommend, if you haven't, all the listeners should definitely go check out that EP. Um, before we move on to some kind of current knocked stuff, Church Tongue is a wedding singer reference,
Yes, yeah.
correct?
Hmm.
Okay.
So when we were conquerors,
Because,
and yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, it was like prepping for, just to see if there was any, deep lore church tongue interviews that might have like 70 views on it or something like buried in the
Yeah,
internet. I was like, I just put church tongue and then it was just wedding singer
yeah,
videos. I was like, oh, okay.
yeah. So
Have you ever opened a show with that soundbite? I hope you have.
no, we haven't. So we like we had the like artsy like seriousness like syndrome where we were like, oh yeah, we're not gonna be goofy. Like we should like be serious on stage. Like only have
Mhm.
like sound clips of like about like I don't know death and
Spooky shit.
yeah
Yeah.
like scary like uncomfortable shit. Uh, but I wish we were a little bit more personable back then. But yes, it is a uh, wedding singer reference. It was like Mike and I were watching The Wedding Singer when we were like trying to figure out like what we were gonna call the new conquerors, essentially.
Mm.
And yeah, and whenever that scene came on, we were like, Church Dog sounds kind of dope, and
Hmm.
that ended up being it.
Yeah. No, it's a great band name.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah. Okay. Current knocked stuff is where I want to go next with our convo.
Cool.
Obviously, anyone who's fans of the band, and this is a pretty timely topic. Y'all just played Coachella, and the world is talking about it as far as like the impact on what that's going to have in hardcore, like just seeing all the videos of things going on. Um, let's go like right to the beginning of when that even just like came onto your radar as far as them hitting you guys up, or if, if management was able to kind of like be like, hey, like I think I might have a way into that world. Like let's start there and then we can kind of get to the actual reaction of things.
Um, so when we first initially got the offer, Vitalo, our manager, hit our group chat and was like, we were trying to plan out this year. This year we knew we wanted to be more chill, like not as much touring, just because
Mhm.
we've been hitting the ground with our wheels spinning for you know the entirety of last year, and then as soon as shows started happening, so we were like, okay, we need a breather. Let's do some fests, maybe a couple tours. Like, let's just enjoy being real humans.
Yeah.
Uh, but we got the text, and um, we had the choice between Coachella and Sick New World, that incredible fest that's happening in Vegas with like all of the like new metal bands.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's happening this weekend or something.
Mhm.
It's the new metal version of When We Were Young, essentially. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Because these are like all of my favorite bands, almost all of my favorite bands ever. Like all of the cool legacy bands are playing it, and I was just like, I think it was like a radius clause or something. I can't remember like what it was, but for whatever reason, we could only choose one. And obviously, we were like, well, this year or last year and like this coming up year, like we've been in this mode of like doing uh like unorthodox tours, like mixed bills, like mixed shows. And I think the metal crowd, or we thought that the metal crowd, or we think that the metal crowd will always be there. Like,
Mhm.
and so when we got the opportunity to do Coachella, we were like, let's do Coachella. We have to do Coachella. Like, why
Yeah.
wouldn't we do Coachella? Like,
Mhm.
it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and like, it's just like such a cool vibe, um, an honor to be asked to play, even. So we're like, we'd be
Absolutely,
stupid
yeah.
if we turned it down. Like, this offer might not be around next year. Like, Sick New World might come around next year. You know what I mean? Like, but Coachella, like, if we pass this up, like, we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot.
Mhm.
Um, so we took it with excitement, but with nervousness. Like we didn't know how it was gonna go. Um,
Right.
and I remember the first weekend of Coachella, like I was just like, I wasn't nervous to play, but I was just like, fuck, I hope this goes well. Like I don't know like if anybody's gonna watch us. I don't know like if people are gonna vibe, or if like we're just gonna like get blank stares. But one thing that I love about everybody in Knocked Loose, is that like regardless of the show, we're gonna put on a show. Like we're going to
Mhm.
perform, and it's gonna be fun while we're up there, even if it isn't fun. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
we're gonna force it.
Yeah.
And the reaction first weekend was more than any of us could have ever like dreamed of. You know what I mean? Like it was fucking insane, like absolutely insane.
Hmm.
And I really wish the second weekend was streamed because the second weekend was even crazier. Like it, yeah,
Seeing
like
the phone
dude,
videos, I was like, second weekend, it's like there was like a attendee group message going around being like, yo, you have to go see Knock Loose and go the fuck off for, the second
yeah,
week. Like the
yeah,
first week of your guys' performance, I was like, wow, like this is great. Like people are vibing. But
yeah,
it felt like like everyone understood the assignment for week two.
yeah. No, absolutely. It was like it was also weird because like on weekend two, I like saw like Kubicon shirts and like more like shirts that were kind of like adjacent to our world, and I was like,
Okay.
this is interesting. But so I was just like, I don't know if like people just like saved it for weekend two or if like I mean, obviously there was such a buzz going around from the first weekend. Like I'm sure people were like, yo, you guys have to check this band out like next week. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, like the first initial reaction was just like, oh my god! I like got off stage, I threw my guitar and like down, and I literally was like, what the fuck? I was like, in like, I was like, that was fucking awesome. Like, I was like, I don't care how like bad I played or like how like weird I felt on stage. Like, it just felt so good, and it was
Dude,
like, it was insane. It was
yeah.
insane.
Um, I want to go back a little bit earlier when you were talking about that nervousness, before you knew how things were going to go. Did you
Mhm.
guys know at the time when you were saying yes, were you thinking, oh, we're going to be the only hardcore band on this bill? Because I think it was just you guys and Scow were like the two, quote unquote representatives
Yeah.
of our branch. But like at the time, like were you like, we're gonna be alone on an island? We're gonna be the flamingo of the
To
fest.
be honest, I can't remember. Um, I think, yeah, I think we were just like, oh god, we're gonna be the only band, and we also didn't know we would be on such a sick stage.
Hmm.
The stage that we played was awesome, and when we rolled up and there was no barricade, we were like, do they know? Like, is this is this gonna be chill? Like,
Yeah, that was the other question I had is like, was that upon request? Because Coachella with a heavy band with a barricade, like the vibe would have been totally
yeah,
off. Like
yeah,
I know you guys have played many of shows with barricades, and sometimes you're supporting another band who's doing that, and you just have to kind of roll with it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it's I was I was like, do they know what's about to or what they're opening up as far as not having any steel separation?
So yeah, I don't know if so to my knowledge, that stage has always never had a barricade. Like I think that
Mhm.
was like that's like part of the vibe of the stage, but I don't think that they knew what kind of show we were gonna bring, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then
Okay.
but the stage crew were professionals and they had like worked with metal bands and stuff before, so and hardcore bands and stuff before. So it was just like it was this weird thing where like everybody was on the same page essentially. Like it
Yeah.
was so weird. Like they treated us with such respect and treated the crowd like so well, and um like I this pissed me off because I was like that video of Terror playing the fucking that theater in Texas or whatever the fuck. We had a problem with security at that venue as well. Um,
Oh, really? Okay, so
yeah,
this yeah, there seems to be a few bands coming around and being
yeah,
like, yeah, this venue's the worst.
yeah. But yeah, I'm just like, how are we playing like a fest that isn't used to this kind of stuff at all? Like they don't have this stuff on any other stages or whatever. And
Mhm.
like people are being treated so well. Like we're being treated so well. The security is super cool, super nice and accommodating. And then you go to like that and it's just like the worst of the worst people running security, just treating people like absolute shit. I'm just like I don't understand how like that is like I don't understand how both of those worlds can exist given the
Mhm.
context of each thing. Like they knew they were working a hardcore show. Like why did they come with those attitudes? And then at Coachella, like, you know, they were so nice.
Yeah, which is like inarguably like attendance wise is way way higher. Like the yeah, I don't even know. Like when I saw that video, like that whole video to me is so interesting because first off, a friend of the show, Jay from Unity TX
Yeah.
is the one filming the video. So shout out to Jay.
Hmm.
Secondly, it's like this metal and metal and hardcore combined tour package with everything from Black Dahlia to Terror. So even when I saw that tour getting announced, I was like, the Mosh. Like I just thought I was like, there's going to be no Mosh cooperation just because there's going to be metalheads who want to headbang and then there's going to be terror heads who want to stage dive. But I haven't seen too many things. But the audacity to like push a kid who's clearly trying to grab the mic and Scott is like literally throwing him the mic because Scott's a man who's seen it all. And then this
Yeah.
guy, and I don't know if he's seen that, but like to watch them double down on like, yeah, we might not ever book any hardcore shows. It's like, well, we never even wanted you a part of this anyway. So glad that
Yeah.
we've drawn a line. But yeah, that
Straight
shit
up.
is so wacky.
Yeah. But I can't believe he grabbed the mic and was like, I don't think so in the mic. Like I
Yeah.
can't believe that he
And
did
said
that.
it in like I don't think so. I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, like,
Yeah.
are you going home after and being like, hey, so I grabbed the mic at this show and I'm a fucking tough guy? Like, oh man, like, yeah.
Yeah,
I
after
don't
the
think
show,
that he's
like,
had any repercussions, but yeah.
yeah. I bet like after the show, all of his buddies were like, "Yeah, you were so sick. Like, good
Fucking told
job."
him.
Oh God.
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
just goes to show that if people are on the same page in this Coachella example for you guys,
Mhm.
the vibes, the promotion that the Coachella Fest has got, like obviously like Coachella is kind of like a household name as far as like
Mhm.
music festivals in the States, but like I'm sure there's a lot more hardcore kids that are like, if they book 3 really dope bands for next year, I might be going to Coachella. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's we won't let the negativity of that derail that because
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honestly
Yeah.
think you guys doing that has been like, now that you've been able to like process it a little bit more, like
Mhm.
there's a lot of people saying like, oh, like this is the moment that everything changes. And I've been
Yeah.
saying on a couple of podcasts, like, I don't think there's ever really one specific moment, but I feel like this is a huge base hit as far as like
Yeah.
starting a shift. Do
Right.
you agree, disagree? Like, what are your thoughts on the whole
Um.
aftermath of all this?
Yeah. I definitely feel like. Um. I mean, I won't say that our set is like the pivotal like shift in when thing or like how things are going to change. I think it's like as far as like time period goes, like guitar music and like punk right now is so huge. Like you have like unfortunately you have people like Machine Gun Kelly like doing like the pop punk thing and like kind of like appropriating punk culture uh and making it mainstream, which is cool because like it gives these kids and like people who might not ever find anything heavier than Machine Gun Kelly a chance to find things that are heavier. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I can't remember like when it was, if it was like last year or like a couple years prior, but like Turnstile and Code Orange both played Coachella
Right. Yeah.
before us. You know, we had like Title Fight playing Coachella at one point. Like there has always been like traces of hardcore and aggressive music in Coachella, whether it be like one band or not. I just think that like as far as our set goes and like how everybody reacted was kind of just like in like a culmination of like how big guitar music is in the world right now. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, I don't know. I think like TikTok and social media definitely has a lot to do with it as well. And thankfully like um Knocked Loose has always been like known for their live show and how like crazy it is. And um I sound like a fucking athlete right now, but I'm just like, you know, we just like brought our A game to the table and we played as well as we possibly could, you know.
Yeah, we put our sticks on the ice.
Yeah.
We played it. We really hold our own out there.
Yeah.
I would love to have someone on the podcast and do the intro fully in like, you know, sports person interview style. Just
it would be so awesome.
Yeah. A couple of last things on the Coachella bit. I was watching the I watched the video of the Mistakes Like Fractures song, like like it's on the Coachella YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Yes. And I already know they cut off the end breakdown. I think that's just a mistake on their part, or on whoever like was in charge of editing the video, because like obviously there is that long ring out before the breakdown. So I imagine
people are cheering like the song is over, and you're like, no, there's more to come.
Yeah. I'm also incredibly embarrassed by that video because there's a moment where like I just ring out and I'm supposed to be playing something there, but I literally could not hear anything. So I was like, I'm just gonna ring out, and I know when the count in is, so whenever the count in comes, I'm just gonna do that.
Was it the ring out like where it's playing like the riff but a little slower?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought like, that you guys were just doing that stylistically, but
yeah. Well, yeah. Most people won't.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Don't like think about that stuff. But I have this thing where like I'm super hard on myself after every set. Like I'm just like I messed up here, and I always have to vocalize it because it's like I don't know. But yeah, it gets annoying. But yeah, so I'm always like constantly thinking about it, and I'm like, of course, Coachella fucking posted the video of that set. Like the second weekend, I played it flawlessly. I'm like, why couldn't it be that set? But yeah,
sometimes when you know, the production of whatever of a festival you're doing or whatever, it's like at the end of the day, it's not like I fell on my ass and I like, you know, like by the time that this episode is out, like we had put out an episode with Nick of Pain of Truth, and he talked about like playing a fest and he did like a spin kick and just like fully like fell on his ass. And like Mike is having to grab the guitar and play the riff because he can't get up. Like it was a whole ordeal. But you know,
awesome.
It's like I don't want to crucify the person who's probably just making minimum wage editing videos for Coachella. Well, maybe it's more than minimum wage, but you know, in their marketing department, as far as being like, oh, this guitar riff is into the next song, so I'll just fade it out here. But like, I'm sure like posted the video and then like the first few comments come in, they're like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah. And it, like at that point, like, do you like take the video down and re-upload it after it's gotten so many views? Like, it's
No.
fine. Like, yeah, it's just one of those things. It is what it is, But
Yeah, it's like that happens all the time for me. Sometimes I like, because Scoped also films bands as well. Like
yeah,
sometimes I'll like upload a song. I'm like, yeah, this song's the one that got the most reaction, and then I'm like, oh wait, that was a cover of this band, and I didn't even like realize it and I'm trying to like feature, check out this band, and it was like, oh, they did
yeah.
a System of a Down cover. Whoops, that slipped through the cracks for me. But the very last thing that I'll ask on the Coachella bit, it seems like there's a theme maybe of like two hardcore band features for Coachella. Who do you think, in your opinion, if you were making the choices, would fit well for their 2024 lineup
Mm.
in the hardcore space?
Ooh. Before we get into this question, I do want to say there was a third hardcore band on the fest.
Oh, okay.
Yep. They were called Soul Glow. And they are
Oh,
a
okay.
very sick band out of Philly.
Solo
And
is very sick.
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally forgot that they were also on that. So
It's all good.
yeah, shout out to them.
I just want to make sure that people know that Soul Glow also played and also had a crazy set. I didn't see it, but I heard crazy things.
Okay.
But yeah. Anyway.
So I guess you could
yeah.
do 3, to keep with the theme.
Oh God, harder. I shot myself in the foot. So as far as like, should I do just hardcore bands or should I do like heavy bands in general?
With 3 choices, I will leave it up to you if you want to
Okay.
keep it all hardcore or toss in a deathcore band just for funsies. But yeah, I leave that up to you, my friend.
The first band that comes to mind is fucking Kubla Khan.
Okay.
I think like they would kill it at Coachella. Not only because like their music is just like stupid ignorant, but like I think like watching them, it's just so captivating, and they're just like so fun to watch. And Matt's like banter and stage presence, like I think like the average crowd at Coachella would eat that shit up.
1,000% agree. That's probably the best pick. And if Coachella is not listening, or if they are listening, Kublai Khan should be at the top of your list.
I think because it's fresh on the brain, I'm also gonna say Terror. Yeah, one of the best hardcore bands of all time, right? And again, Scott Vogel as a frontman, almost unbeatable. Like the crowd participation that he encourages is absolutely insane. And if it was at Coachella, again, I think would be awesome. And I think that would be a really good representation of like grassroots hardcore.
Like I think the excitement for someone who's probably never stage dived in their life to have an older bald dude just screaming in your face, get the fuck on this stage and stage dive, like right. That would just amp people up who have never felt that hardcore feeling before. Yeah, Terror, that's a great pick too.
And like people finding out they're like a California band, like huge, would be so sick. Fuck, who should my third be?
Yeah, give me a left turn as far as choices.
Anxious.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So obviously people who are familiar, who are in hardcore are like, yeah, Anxious is a hardcore band, but I'm sure the majority of the world is like they're a pop punk band, or like a rock band or whatever you want to call them. But I think one, Lil Greenhouse is like one of my favorite releases of all, like within the past like decade. I think it's so fucking good. I think it's the next Third Eye Blind. You know, like I was just like every hook is catchy, the parts are interesting and intricate, and like yeah. I haven't seen them enough times to like. Well, they're all homies, by the way. So this is all love. I haven't seen them enough times to know how good they are live. But I think like I've seen them enough times to know that like they do have a cool stage presence and they bring like something really like a really cool and fun energy to a show. And I think that's like another thing like the Coachella crowd will see and hear, and it's like, oh, this band is like kind of a pop punk band, or they're like a punk band or whatever. Like they'll probably just lump them into the punk group, and
Sure.
they'll see like everybody two stepping on stage at the same time. Like, you know, like they're like, oh, this is fucking dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also great stage dive music too. So
Yeah, those are great.
my three.
3 great picks. You were like, "Oh, this is gonna be so hard," but you came to take some names. Jordan, I would like you to make a note in the doc so we can make a question on this episode. What are 3 hardcore bands that the audience wants? We'll have that so people. I'm curious to see people's responses.
Yeah. Same actually. That was an awesome question.
Can I take a stab at it?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm asking for your permission for me to take a stab at this question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I would love to hear your thoughts.
I think Speed is a band that in any context that they play, they can sell it.
Okay.
And they can get people hyped on.
I completely just didn't think of Speed, but yes, absolutely.
It's very fresh in my mind because today they dropped kind of a little documentary about their Southeast Asia run, and I was just I got to see them for the first time like a month ago when they played Toronto, first time in Canada, and it was like those guys understand what hardcore needs to be, and they are on a mission not only for just hardcore in general but for Australian hardcore, and I think them in a Coachella setting would be crazy. So there would be my first pick. Trying to think. I'm gonna. This might be a little bias, but I think Comeback Kid could really work as well.
Yeah,
because I feel like they have like the heavy parts, but they also have the more melodic stuff that people can get. And they have like the tenure as a band where they can like they've been around. So that's my selfish like Canadian pick that I want to force in there.
Yeah. Of course. I love Comeback Kid. And then one of the very first hardcore bands I ever got into.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like they've done enough as far as like random like festivals all around the world that I think, you know, Goose being able to check off Coachella on his bucket list would be very sick.
Yeah. Would be awesome.
Last one. Church Tongue's first show back, maybe.
You know? Shut up. No fucking way.
Dude, little surprise set.
I'm not accepting that answer. Mainly because there are other bands that are more deserving, and I'm still curious. Like I feel like you're only saying that because we're on the podcast together.
Well, it would be a completely just. It wouldn't make sense given all the context that we talked about.
Yeah.
But if you do want a real answer,
I am flattered, by the way. Thank you. I would love to play Coachella as Church Tongue.
Yes, guys, let's make it happen. Okay, I'm stuck in between 2 because they're both. Because I was thinking about your suggestion with Terror, and having that California hometown kind of advantage. So I'm stuck between 2. Okay, I'm gonna go with my gut and say The Ghost Inside.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because they have a little bit more years under their belt. I feel like they have like those more singy, like kind of like
Yeah.
metallic metalcore kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I feel like if Scowl, Soul Glow, and Noct helps set it up, it doesn't need to be like that. Oh, like we have the singy parts. Like there's enough where like a really established core band could play that fest now. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah,
I
I
back that
think
answer. Yeah.
yeah. So ending my picks: Speed, Comeback Kid, and The Ghost Inside, and then we said Anxious, ADHD,
Kublai Khan and Terror.
Kublai Khan and Terror. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very curious on people listening to this episode as far as bands that they think would work in that. I know I'm gonna get like bands like have been around for a year and have like a demo out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if that's what you think, sure. Nicko, one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay.
What is your obsession with ET?
Okay, so this is like kind of a new obsession.
Okay.
It
It's
kind of
new
started
because
newer.
there's stories that go back for years, it seems.
Years. I don't know
Well,
about
at least
that.
two. At least
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ET. When was it? When did I start like really like leaning into the bit? I want to
Into the
say
bit.
like okay, maybe a year or two ago. Maggie really likes like ET's character design. Maggie's my partner. She's an artist,
Mhm.
and one of her favorite artists like did like a not like an ET feature, but she included ET in like a few of her pieces, and then did like a collab with Heaven by Mark Jacobs, and they put out a line with like this fucked up ET looking face on it, and it's just super sick, right?
Mm.
And Maggie and I watched ET together, and it was like my first time watching it since I was a kid, and I was like, oh my god, I can't like I don't remember any of this. Like I didn't remember anything other than like the ET phone home and you know the typical like
Sure. Yeah.
lines and shit. And like that movie like low key gets dark as fuck and like kind of scary at points. And I was like, I actually really love this. And then it became this thing where I was like, okay, well now I'm just gonna like I started like finding vintage ET stuff at like vintage stores and stuff while on tour, and I like bought one. Or, like I bought one, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get Maggie this, and then it turned into this thing where I was like, oh, what if I just like started collecting like weird vintage ET stuff? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, now it's like I've kind of made it a thing where like I have to find at least one ET in every city that we go to.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've become a little bit more lax on the rules because there are like some serious ET collectors I've found out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
People
That
with
are
a
like
lot of skin in the game.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, it can be new now, but I can't like go online and buy it. Like I have to physically find it. I also count this, but it's a tattoo that I got in Nashville by a tattoo artist that goes by Squishy Eyes on Instagram. But it's ET with like an alien popping out of its chest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like really cool collab because I love Alien as well. So I think, yeah. Long story short, I stole Maggie's thing and made it my own personality.
I got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
like sometimes it's funny just like perusing on someone's Instagram, and I'm like, what's this ET highlight all about? And you have a good collection of
Yeah.
things. So is the goal to be able to every state have, something that you've gotten from that, or because that's a trek of its own to be able
Yeah.
to, you're gonna have to go to states that like Knock Loose isn't even playing. And you're
Yeah,
like,
I know,
I'm
right?
here just for ET.
Yeah, I haven't really thought that far into it. I'm just like,
Sure.
if I'm there and I find it, I'm fucking getting it, you know?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so I have like probably over like 30-ish. I want to say like 36 ET separate ET things in my house now. Um, I will bring this one out right now because it's literally on my desk as we're talking about this. But
Yeah.
for Christmas, Knocked Loose did like a Secret Santa thing, and Taylor got me, and she made me this cute little like
Yeah,
ET
I
thing
saw
out of
that
clay.
she
Yeah,
made it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's very cool.
It's got a little like Coke can. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Yeah, ET rocks. I love ET.
ET rocks. Yeah. Um, yeah, one of the questions I had was like, out of the 36-ish that you had, if place is going up in flames, what's the one that you grab? But I think we already answered that question. It's
Oh, it
the
has to be. Yeah, it has to be the one Taylor made
yeah,
me for sure. It definitely has
yeah.
the most
Like, are there
know,
any that are larger in size that you're like, oh, this is gonna take up a lot of space if I get this? Like, you don't
not
have any like life size ET like
no, no.
things
I
or anything
wish.
like that? No.
So I can't remember what venue it was, but we were on tour and we went to this like toy store across the street from the venue, and
Mm.
they did have a life size ET for $400, and I was just like,
Yo.
I could get this, but then everybody
Then I
would
have
be
to lug it
pissed at
around.
me. Yeah, it was like not even halfway through tour too, so it was like, there's no fucking way I can take this with me. If it was like 3 days, I'd be like, everybody, shut the fuck up about my ET. I'm taking it. But yeah,
That's hilarious. Well, there's maybe one or two people listening to this podcast that also fuck with ET. So if that's you, make sure to reach out to Nicko so y'all can form your little ET group chat as far as
yeah, let's do
being
it.
on the hunt for all that new shit. So you didn't pull the trigger on the $400 one. What's the most amount of money that you spent on? No.
No, I didn't. I wish I did.
Yeah.
The most amount of money I spent on an ET thing, honestly, probably the Build-A-Bear. So the
Oh, an
40th,
ET Build-A-Bear.
yeah, the
Okay.
40th anniversary of ET was recently, and Build-A-Bear did like a thing for it, and yeah, it was like maybe $50. So like
Oh,
not
okay. That's
yeah,
not too bad.
not a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
But
did
yeah.
they have like a preset like ET like sound thing, or did you have to say that into the little
they did
little
they
box?
did have the like the preset, but I didn't get it because I was like, this sounds like shit. I don't want to do this.
The quality of this is garbage.
Yeah, no, straight up. I was like, this sounds
Yeah.
fucking awful.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, Nicko, we have covered all the bases from Church Tongue, Knock Loose to ET. I have one final question, which is the classic ender question for all things Scoped Exposure podcast wise. Tell me a Mosh related story that's fresh off the dome for you. Could be wholesome, could be gruesome, could have happened to you. You did it at a Knocked or Church Tongue show, or just a show you're attending. Anything that's first your head.
Oh my god. First thing that comes to mind was there's a show in Terre Haute. It was like a local show. There used to be a band called Worker, and I think Luke from the band Better Off used to be in it or something. or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something
Better
weird.
Off is a
Yeah,
fantastic band. I just need to say
fantastic
that.
band. Yeah,
Mhm.
they also played under their old name, which was Friends. But anyway,
Mm.
Worker was like a hardcore band. Uh, they played as well, and I remember. I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but I remember moshing to them, and I don't know what the fuck I did, but it was so stupid. I remember like falling on my ass and like I did like a spin kick or something and I fell on my ass and then like for whatever reason after the show I went up to the singer at the merch table and I apologized for my spin kick. And like thinking back about it, I'm like, that is so fucking embarrassing that I did that. Like, why the hell did I do that? And
Right.
uh
Were
and
you
I
apologizing
yeah,
for the quality, or your leg didn't get
yeah,
high enough, or were there a specific
the quality.
piece about that? The
Yeah, I was
quality.
like,
Okay.
I was like, I think I was like, I'm sorry I moshed like stupidly, or like, I'm sorry I didn't look cool when I moshed, or some shit like that. Uh, and I remember him just like being like, dude, don't ever worry about that fucking shit. And I was like,
Right.
okay. And then ever since then, I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess that is my one mosh story. I wish it was
Yeah.
funnier and cooler, but that's just the first one that popped in my head.
Yeah.
I
Well,
really
there
hope
might
that
be. No, no, you
uh,
go.
yeah. I was just saying I really hope that the band name is correct because I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it's working.
Hmm.
But anyway,
Yeah. Well, the biggest takeaway obviously is whether you've been moshing for 10 minutes or 10 years, never apologize, just
yeah,
mosh.
yeah, just
People don't
fucking
care
do it.
how it looks, just people want to see that
Yeah,
movement. So
yeah, yeah, just do it. But
just do it. Um, Nicko, we did it.
yeah,
That's 5 for 5 of the Knock Loose camp. Obviously, all your music links and your socials, Nicko, will be in the show notes in the description. If there's anything you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, or anything you want to send the people off with before we wrap up, the floor is yours, my friend.
um, something I really want to plug really quick is just some current hardcore bands and heavy bands from Indianapolis because I haven't been connected in a long time. I'm originally from Indianapolis and I did some research the other day and heard some really cool stuff and I've heard that the scene in like Bloomington and Indianapolis and like stuff like that is starting to thrive again and I think that's really dope. So I just want to give a shout out to the band Lib, the band Mesmer, um, the band One Body Six Graves, the band Slur, and the band Rest Assured. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I'll text you or email you links to those if you want to include them. But all cool bands from
We will
Indianapolis
definitely
doing
do
cool
that.
things.
And I will be doing my hardcore homework after this episode with all those bands.
Sick.
Sick.
But yeah, dude, this was such a pleasure to do. I had so much fun, and yeah. Also, um, really quick side note: did I
Sure.
meet you in the green room at Wild Rose? Were you in our
This
green room at all?
past year. No.
Yes. Okay.
No.
Okay. Okay. Because there was
I
somebody. I was just gonna say there was somebody in our green room that looks similar to you, and I remember like not being in it that day. Like I was like really weird, really socially anxious, and I like didn't say hi to this person, and I thought it maybe would have been you, but but if it's not, then dope.
Yeah, dope. Didn't
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
do that. But yeah, I think yeah, for Wild Roses last year, I remember your set. I I did a bucket list thing of me, which was filming alongside Sonny for his channel, with his rig, and having the realization that um I think it was because Zulu played before you guys, and
yeah,
I was like, I went to him to hand the camera off just before, the changeover for you guys to set. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to give you as much of the, the whip pans and all the stuff that, that I've learned just watching him over the years. He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you're doing a great job." I was like, "Well, you haven't even seen my footage yet." He's like, "Oh, I've been watching your feed on the iPad," and I just had like this moment of like, "Oh
Sick.
shit," you know. And he's like,
That's
"Yeah, you know
awesome.
what you're doing." And so having that like subtle ego boost, if you want to call it that, to go
Yeah.
into the Knock Loose set from Wild Rose was very, very cool. Unfortunately, and I think this is just the serendipity of things where you were staged right for that show and I was on the
Mhm.
side with Isaac
Sure.
kind of
Sure.
like filming him. And so I'm there's a part of me that's a little sad that we didn't get to have an intro officially in person, but
Yeah.
I know that our paths, Nicko, will cross really, really soon.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you again
Yeah.
so much for doing this. And yeah, we,
Yeah.
just because we've done 5 Knock Loose episodes doesn't mean there's, I don't know when the 6th one will be, if that's a repeat with someone else, or maybe we can do some in-person shit, but time will tell.
Yeah. Dope. Seriously, thank you so much for having me again. Like, this was a real treat.